Think classic Hollywood was all glitz and timeless romance. Think again. Behind the diamond rings and studio-orchestrated fairy tales lay dark secrets, violent jealousies, and powerful moguls who erased marriages overnight. Why did the golden unions of Marilyn Monroe, Elizabeth Taylor, and Jean Harlow implode in mere months? Today, we're exposing the briefest, most shocking marriages of Hollywood's golden era and revealing the dark studio conspiracy that destroyed them before they even began. When baseball titan Joe DiMaggio wed Hollywood royalty Marilyn Monroe in January 1954, San Francisco City Hall was swarmed by a feverish crowd so massive that police had to step in a spectacle that captured front-page headlines across America the very next morning. DiMaggio, a fiercely private icon of traditional values, harbored a quiet dream he believed marriage would settle his bright young bride into a peaceful domestic routine far from the relentless flashbulbs. He envisioned sharing the grounded life he had built for himself, assuming Marilyn would eventually long for that same quiet harbor. But DiMaggio failed to realize that Monroe had no desire to surrender the hard-won stardom she had spent a painstaking decade fighting to achieve. Their irreconcilable visions reached a tragic boiling point that September on the Manhattan set of The 7-Year Itch. As a subway great gust lifted Monroe's white dress before a roaring crowd of onlookers and photographers, DiMaggio watched from the sidelines, visibly consumed by fury. Hours later at their hotel, a furious argument erupted between them, one so intense that neighbors reportedly heard the shouts echoing straight through the walls. Their storybook romance lasted a mere 9 months, with Monroe filing for divorce in October. Yet beneath the sting of heartbreak, DiMaggio's devotion never wavered. For over 2 decades following her tragic passing, he faithfully arranged for half a dozen fresh red roses to be delivered to her crypt 3 times every week, a quiet, enduring testament to the legendary love they could never quite hold on to in life. When Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer orchestrated the 1950 wedding of 18-year-old Elizabeth Taylor, the studio treated the ceremony like a blockbuster movie premiere. Complete with a lavish custom gown and a star-studded guest list engineered for maximum media frenzy, the spectacle enthralled millions across America. On paper, hotel heir Conrad Nicky Hilton Jr. seemed like a dream match, dashing wealthy and striking alongside Hollywood's premier starlet. Behind the glamorous studio headlines lay a far darker reality that fan magazines refused to print. Taylor later revealed devastating truths about her new groom, a man plagued by heavy drinking, relentless gambling, and a volatile temper that turned physically abusive within weeks. The abuse escalated dramatically during their European honeymoon, leaving the young bride terrified for her safety and trapped in a nightmare disguised as a fairy tale. Their fairy tale collapsed in less than 8 months, ending in divorce before Taylor even turned 19. For MGM, the human toll was merely a footnote. The studio swiftly swept the scandal aside, plunging Taylor straight into her next picture as if nothing had ever happened. Despite the painful heartbreak, this tragic union marked only the beginning of a legendary romantic journey. Taylor would go on to marry 7 more times throughout her extraordinary life, most famously twice to Richard Burton, turning her unrelenting search for true love into one of the most enduring sagas in Hollywood history. When America's sweetheart Debbie Reynolds wed crooner Eddie Fisher in 1955, the press celebrated it as the ultimate fairy tale union of 2 wholesome young icons. Yet that pristine illusion shattered completely in 1958 following the tragic death of producer Mike Todd in a plane crash. Todd left behind a grieving widow, Elizabeth Taylor, a woman Reynolds had affectionately considered a close friend since their teenage years. Sent to comfort the heartbroken Taylor, Fisher embarked almost immediately on a secret romance with her. The devastating betrayal exposed nationwide became an overnight sensation, shocking a conservative post-war public. Left behind with 2 small children, including future star Carrie Fisher Reynolds, endured the humiliating ordeal largely through shocking newspaper headlines rather than direct conversations with her husband. By 1959, Fisher abandoned his family to marry Taylor in Las Vegas, transforming Hollywood's golden couple into the center of the decade's most infamous infidelity scandal. The studio system tried to manage the fallout, but the public overwhelmingly sided with the wronged Reynolds. Decades later, in a twist fit for a movie script, Reynolds and Taylor miraculously reconciled on a luxury cruise in 2000, reigniting a warm friendship that lasted until Taylor's passing, a poignant finale to Hollywood's most explosive love triangle. Judy Garland and David Rose, the silent pain behind the spotlight. In 1941, at just 19 years old, Judy Garland married composer and bandleader David Rose in a private Las Vegas ceremony. MGM strongly opposed the marriage, worried that their young star's image as the wholesome girl from The Wizard of Oz could be damaged. But the pressure became even more painful when Garland became pregnant with Rose's child. Accounts published years later say that Garland's mother and MGM executives pressured her to end the pregnancy, fearing that motherhood would interfere with the carefully controlled image the studio had built around her. For a young woman already living under enormous professional pressure, the experience reportedly left a lasting emotional scar. Garland was expected to remain youthful, slim, and endlessly available for the studio, even as her personal life was falling apart behind closed doors. Her marriage to Rose could not withstand the strain. The couple separated in 1943 and divorced in 1944, only 3 years after they had married. Looking back, their story reveals a darker side of Hollywood's golden age. Garland's talent made her famous, but the studio system often treated that talent as something it owned. Behind the dazzling costumes, packed theaters, and applause was a young woman whose personal choices were not always truly hers. That loss of control would become one of the recurring tragedies of Garland's life, and a painful reminder of the price some stars paid for fame. Mickey Rooney and Ava Gardner, when Hollywood reality collided with romance. In 1942, Mickey Rooney was one of the biggest box office stars in America. At only 21, he had become famous for his energetic, boyish screen persona. So when he fell for MGM contract player Ava Gardner, the studio reportedly worried about how their relationship might affect the carefully protected image audiences had come to love. Gardner was just 19 when she married Rooney, and years later she described a relationship that moved remarkably quickly. Their courtship unfolded under the constant influence of Hollywood schedules, publicity, and the intense lifestyle surrounding young stars. Behind the glamorous wedding, however, the couple struggled to build a stable private life. Rooney's busy social world and behavior reportedly created serious tension almost immediately. Gardner later recalled that she was still learning who her husband really was while already dealing with the pressures of being married to one of Hollywood's most recognizable young stars. The marriage lasted barely a year. By 1943, Rooney and Gardner were divorced. For Gardner, the experience became an early lesson in the difference between Hollywood romance and real life. She would go on to become one of the defining stars of her generation, but her brief marriage to Rooney remained a reminder of how quickly fame, youth, and studio pressure could turn a glamorous love story into a painful reality. When Hollywood's original blonde bombshell, Jean Harlow, married MGM executive Paul Byrne in July 1932, the public was captivated by the union between the glowing 21-year-old screen siren and her gentle 42-year-old intellectual husband. But that fragile happiness collapsed just 2 short months later when Byrne was found dead in their Benedict Canyon home, killed by a gunshot wound to the head. Before local law enforcement was even alerted, MGM's ruthless studio fixers, led by mogul Louis B. Mayer and publicity chief Howard Strickling, rushed directly to the scene. Operatives allegedly altered the room, managed physical evidence, and released a dubious suicide note driven entirely by a desire to shield their multi-million-dollar starlet from a career-ending murder scandal. Though officially ruled a self-inflicted suicide, Byrne's sudden demise ignited explosive conspiracy theories that have fascinated crime historians for nearly a century. Whispers swirled regarding physical dysfunction on their wedding night, while compelling alternative theories pointed toward Byrne's mentally ill common-law wife, Dorothy Millette, who mysteriously drowned in a nearby river just days after the shooting. Rather than allowing the shattered young widow time to privately process her grief, MGM cold-heartedly ordered Harlow back to the film set of Red Dust within days, compressing her profound trauma into a brief studio-scripted press release. The terrifying ordeal exposed the dark, manipulative machinery of Golden Age Hollywood, where protecting box office profits consistently took precedent over human compassion. When screen legend Joan Crawford married cultured stage actor Franchot Tone in 1935, the Hollywood press hailed them as a sophisticated power couple. Tone, an aristocratic Broadway-trained actor, brought intellectual prestige to Crawford's fiery Hollywood glamour. Yet beneath the polished facade, the marriage deteriorated rapidly as Tone struggled with the agonizing reality of living in his wife's overwhelming professional shadow. As Crawford's box office dominance eclipsed his own career, Tone descended into heavy alcoholism. Fueled by resentment and alcohol, his frustration turned violent, leading to severe verbal and physical abuse during the relationship's final years. Tone's deep-seated insecurity over playing Mr. Crawford created a toxic household dynamic that destroyed their shared affection. Ever conscious of her fiercely guarded public image, Crawford maintained absolute silence regarding the domestic violence throughout her lifetime. Only decades later, through private letters and candid tape conversations released after her death in 1977, did the harrowing truth of Tone's violent outbursts become public knowledge. Despite the bitter physical and emotional turmoil, the couple endured 4 grueling years together before finally divorcing in 1939. Remarkably, after the dust settled and Tone conquered his personal demons, the two managed to forge a quiet, lifelong friendship. In a poignant final twist of fate, when Tone was dying of cancer in 1968, Crawford opened her New York apartment to care for him during his final days, a quiet, compassionate farewell to the tempestuous love of her youth. When Hollywood's supreme love goddess Rita Hayworth married Prince Ali Khan in May 1949, the world watched in awe as a real-life fairy tale unfolded before their eyes. Hayworth, at the absolute zenith of her fame, relinquished her lucrative studio career at Columbia Pictures to marry the flamboyant playboy prince son and heir to the Aga Khan III, leader of tens of millions of Ismaili Muslims and owner of one of the vastest fortunes on earth. Yet the glamorous dream evaporated almost as soon as the wedding confetti cleared. Prince Ali Khan was an unrepentant, compulsive womanizer whose lavish lifestyle, constant jet-setting, and public infidelities humiliated Hayworth at every turn. Accustomed to the quietly disciplined life of a hard-working actress, Rita found herself isolated in European palaces, surrounded by a royal court that viewed her as little more than an exotic trophy. Although the union produced a beloved daughter, Princess Yasmin Aga Khan, in late 1949, the deep cultural divide and relentless betrayal proved insurmountable. After enduring 4 grueling years of heartbreak and public embarrassment, Hayworth filed for divorce in 1953, taking her daughter back to America to rebuild her film career. Reflecting on the painful ruin of her high-profile romances, Hayworth later uttered her most famous and heartbreaking line, "They go to bed with Gilda and wake up with me." It was a tragic admission that Prince Ali Khan, like every man in her life, had fallen in love with a fantasy crafted on celluloid rather than the vulnerable woman standing beneath the glamour. Thank you for watching today's video. If you find the content interesting or useful, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the latest videos. Your support is the biggest motivation for us to continue creating better quality content every day. What do you think about today's topic? Leave a comment below so we can discuss it together. See you in the next video. Have a great day.